Shriya Kanta Kanta Paramapurusha Kalpataravo Juma Bhumischintamani Ganamayi Toyamamritam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanamapi Vamshipriya Saki Chidanandam Jyoti Paramapitadasvadyam Apicha. Where every tree is a desired tree and every word is a song or a poem, and where every step is a dance. So we heard this morning about longing for Braja, and maybe this is a good starting point for our whatever we're going to be doing. What are we going to be doing? As I said yesterday afternoon, evening, I thought to make as the basis, the sort of textual basis for what we want to do, the Srimad Bhagavatam, and specifically Canto 5. I call this a dive into Canto 5. Hare Krishna. Couldn't resist it. And there is a method behind my madness. What is that alluding to when I said there is method in my madness? Anyone know? It's alluding to Shakespeare Macbeth. I think it was the queen, I don't remember the name, who was said to have method in her madness. She had quite some horrible method and horrible madness, but in any case, my method hopefully is not so horrible. Hopefully it's more pleasurable. The method is that, as some of you know, we've been encouraging devotees to read Srimad Bhagavatam, reflect on Srimad Bhagavatam, and then write on Srimad Bhagavatam. And a tangible result of this has been the publication of now 4 volumes. We've now brought out, I don't know, we may have copies back there of Canto 4. Yeah, if you want, you can get a copy. It's called, what is it called? Bhagavata Smarana. And then the subtitle is Devotees Reflect on the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we've had wonderful contributions by devotees. Oh, she's Hanuman bringing the whole mountain. Wonderful reflections on, indeed, 4 cantos. Thank you. Yeah, this Canto 4 has just come out. And so the method in my madness is quite directly to encourage any and all of you, really, to write something within the next few months. We can talk about that, what our deadline is. Something from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5. Canto 5 has 26 chapters. So your inspiration could be from any one of those chapters. It could be from any one verse of any one of those chapters. It could be from a series of verses. It could be from a sentence in a purport from Srila Prabhupada, or it could be the whole purport. It could possibly be from a whole chapter. In fact, it could be from a series of chapters. But we're encouraging you to do what I believe it was Cicero who said that there's no better way to focus your mind on something than to write about it. There's something interesting about the process of writing. Some of us associate writing with pulling teeth. It's the last thing. Don't ask me to write anything except an SMS message or a WhatsApp message. But yeah, maybe you had some traumatic experience in school. But this may be an opportunity to turn a new chapter in your writing career. That's very briefly, I'll explain, we can explain more about that, but that's why Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 5. And we do want to do a bit of overviewing of Canto 5. And I thought we can do this with pictures, with images, paintings. Srila Prabhupada really liked to have his books illustrated. In fact, someone pointed out that his initial hope was to have an illustration on every other page of Srimad Bhagavatam. He referred to the paintings of all of his books in general as windows into the spiritual world. If we think about how windows work, we see through them and see what is outside. It's an interesting idea to consider these works of painting as windows into the spiritual world. And as a kind of footnote to that, one form of writing which you might consider has the Greek name ekphrasis. Ekphrasis is writing about usually visual art. It may be a sculpture, it may be a painting, it might be conceptual art, I don't know, could be different sorts of art. But the most famous that I know of ekphrasis in English literature was by John Keats in the early 19th century, who wrote Ode on a Greek Urn. An urn is a pot. It's a ceramic pot, and as you may know, these Greek pots, sometimes they were painted, quite beautiful painting. So he wrote one poem about one particular such pot. And that became, I think it's considered one of the best pieces of English poetry ever. And that's a form of, or an example of ekphrasis. But I have some other ideas about how we might engage with the Srimad Bhagavatam. The time is always very short, so we'll see what we can do. I mentioned yesterday one possibility is rap. And we had some quite amazing rap performances in Serbia just a few weeks ago. I confess, I even wrote a rap song. I don't know if I should make you suffer hearing it, but yeah. Oh no. Okay. Let's see if I can find it. Now that we've set this up, I don't know what'll happen. Let's see. Let's see. Mm-hmm. Disagreement. Well, maybe I'll find it later and share it with you. I won't take the time now. What I want to do now is something we did last year as well, as a little icebreaker. If you could all stand up. Hare Krishna, thank you. And now what we want to do is simply greet each other. And how we do that, many of you will remember. Wait. They're so eager. We're simply going to go to each and every one of us and say, Namaste. Okay? Go for it. Okay. I think that served purpose of a little bit breaking whatever ice might have lingered. So now I think it would be nice to do something before we get into Fifth Canto, and that is to talk to a neighbor about your maybe not very first experience, but an early experience you had with Srimad Bhagavatam. It may have been something about how it was challenging to whatever you read about, Sixth Canto, Chitraketu's 10 million wives, or it may have been something funny, or it may have been something strange. But if you can just talk with each other now and try to go back in memory. You've all, I think all of you have had some engagement with Srimad Bhagavatam, yes? Anyone not? Anyone? No experience of Srimad Bhagavatam? Okay. Well, you'll be getting. Otherwise, if you can just turn to a neighbor and you can share for a couple of minutes some memory you have from whatever canto. It seems we have quite a bit to tell about our experience early experience of Srimad Bhagavatam. Anyone want to share with all of us something you heard from the person you spoke with? Yes, microphone. Who, me?
Hare Krishna. I want to share this verse from the Fifth Canto, chapter 5, verse 7.
Oh.
The mind makes the living entity within this material world wander through different species of life, and thus the living entity experiences mundane affairs in different forms as a human being, demigod, fat person, skinny person, and so forth. Learned scholars say that bodily appearance, bondage, and liberation are caused by the mind.
Okay. So now here's a question for you. How would you act out this verse? How would you act it out? Improvisational theater is an interesting form of theater, and it's improvisational. It means you don't plan everything out. You might have certain kind of basic ideas in mind, but you basically let it flow, and it usually involves at least some dialogue. It could be a monologue, but it could be a dialogue in which there's some exchange. And when there's exchange in improvisational theater, there are basically two rules.
Sorry, could we nochmal die Nummer sagen? We want to
Oh.
in Deutsch.
557.
557, okay.
557. Yeah. Okay. She's planning to do a skit for it. Two rules. One is, whatever the first person speaks or says, the second person basically goes, yes, and. So they carry with whatever the other one was saying. And you kind of, the basic idea is go with it. Whatever the mood was of the first person, you say yes, and you expand from there. And the second rule is there are no mistakes. Everything is possible. So, and why is that so? It's because whatever happens, somehow it's coming from somewhere inside you, and that's not all bad. And people can relate to that. Why? Because, well, we're all human beings, and we all have similar experiences, perhaps. So these two rules are there. Another way of thinking about how you would take one verse like this is in the form of an interview, perhaps a television interview or a radio interview, or nowadays it's all podcasts, right? So if you were invited to speak on Nam Rasa Prabhu's late morning podcast? And he asked you, so what do you have to say about this verse? Then what would you say, right? So that can be performed. Performance, what is performance? Performance is we're putting ourselves somehow in front of others to be heard and to be viewed with some sort of purpose to move them. Some sort of purpose to move our audience, isn't it? Or to simply inform, but why would we inform? Because we want something to happen, some sort of movement we want to happen. Anyone else, something you just now shared from, in general, Srimad Bhagavatam encountering? Maybe some challenge you had. Anyone? True confessions. Yes.
Hare Krishna. I think when I at least, I mean, also we spoke about it, a couple of other people in
a little bit louder, if you could.
Sorry. A couple of us in our group had the challenge of the stories in Bhagavatam being not only unbelievable but contrary to sort of moral and ethical regulations that we as humans have. For example, it was mentioned that I haven't personally read this story yet, but Lord Brahma was somehow following his daughter or something like that, attracted to his daughter, and that was raising a lot of difficulties with devotees.
Would anyone like to, on the spot, come up and act that out? Well, I didn't get any positive response to that. You sure you don't want to try it? You're good. Okay, good, thank you. Anyone else? Something, anything you shared? There, you were all talking so much, and now you're all silent. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for this beautiful exchange actually that we had. The person I was speaking to was telling that it was first quite confusing for her to really get to know which dialogue is taking place and what is happening in Srimad Bhagavatam, and that really helped her later on to read literature that is on Bhagavatam, and that was helping me also a lot. I was remembering myself going through Bhagavatam first as a kid, and I was just looking at the pictures. Of course, I didn't understand anything else. And till today, I remember that the picture where Bhishmadev is lying on the bed of arrow was very moving for me because, especially as a kid, but also now still, we have this tendency of seeing good and bad, and that the bad has to be annihilated or killed, and good not, or the good are protected, and to know that Arjuna and Krishna is good, and still they basically cause harm. Of course, it's not harming the soul that we don't understand deeply, but trying to kill Bhishmadev, who is a pure devotee, and who is praying to Krishna so much. In the end, it was very difficult for me to swallow and very deeply moving also.
Difficult and moving. Nice. Okay, that's nice. What you're mentioning, that image, has just reminded me of an image in my mind from having once visited Kurukshetra. And there's one, as I remember, little temple complex where they have some dioramas. And one of the dioramas is of Bhishma lying on the bed of arrows, and all of the devotees and Krishna are surrounding. And what I remember from that especially is that Bhishmadev, although he's lying on a bed of arrows, he's wearing his shoes. There are these, peg shoes, but still, I just thought, how is that possible? Is he anticipating getting up soon? Or why is he wearing his shoes? Why doesn't somebody take off his shoes so he can at least... Anyway, I just thought of that because we were hearing about Kurukshetra this morning. Have you seen that place? Oh, anyway. Okay, that was neither here nor there. Maybe one more to say something. Yes. Marisha.
Okay. Yeah, we had I had 2 points. One is that Jana told me that she had a very big wish to get in Srimad Bhagavatam, and the institution to was heißt denn schenken? Give somebody to Srimad Bhagavatam is a very good institution, because she get from her friends, from other devotees, the whole cantos. Yes. And for me, I remember the first canto, and as Ashwatthama was killed, the 5 sons from Draupadi, and Krishna and Arjuna follow him and want to kill them, and then they catch him and bring him to Draupadi. And Draupadi says, "No, don't kill Ashwatthama, because I don't want that her mother has suffering so much than me." And it was very touched me a lot.
Yeah.
So and this Draupadi, it's a big soul, I think. She to get have this great and know the feeling from Rache. I don't know what it's in English. Rache. Revenge. Okay. Yeah, that's
yes.
what I was remember.
Yes, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Draupadi, her devotion comes to the front. And I like to think of the Bhagavatam as a commentary on the Mahabharata, where the main message, or one of the main messages, is that so many of the, we might want to say, actors in the Mahabharata are actually devotees of Krishna. And Krishna, who is fairly in the background in the Mahabharata, comes right out in the foreground, especially, of course, in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. But this points to, and also the story of Bhishmadev, the Bhagavatam, I find it helpful to think of it as a commentary. One aspect of the Bhagavatam, we can talk about this more later, but one important aspect, it's a kind of commentary on the Mahabharata. as we know, Srila Vyasadeva was not happy after he had composed the Mahabharata. Why was he not happy? Because as he understood himself and was confirmed by Narada, he had not highlighted, he had not focused on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's what the Bhagavatam is. Now, Fifth Canto is sort of halfway to 10th Canto. And 10th Canto is where Krishna comes to front and center stage, so to speak. And we sometimes may wonder, do we have to go through all of these 9 cantos to get to Krishna? Is it so necessary? I like to tell a true story. In Oxford, maybe some of you have already heard this, we have one very highly respected professor, Keith Ward, now retired, who was very supportive of our academic project there, the Oxford Center for Hindu Studies. And so the director of our center, Shanaka Rishi Prabhu, gave him, as a token of his thanks for his help, gave him a set of Srimad Bhagavatams. And Professor Ward started reading Canto 1, and he was reading the verses, and he was reading Srila Prabhupada's purports, and he told us sometime later, he's a very respected scholar whose main area is Christian theology, but he also has studied Vaishnava theology and others, and he's written extensively. So he explained, so I was reading in the first canto, and I read in one of Prabhupada's purports, he says that one should not jump to the 10th canto. One should carefully read all the first 9 cantos before going to the 10th canto. Well, he said, when I read that, I couldn't resist. I jumped right to the 10th canto. And of course, Prabhupada himself wrote his Krishna books to enable everyone to jump to the 10th canto, in effect. But still, what happened? We are urged and encouraged to study the entire Bhagavatam, including the 5th canto. But before we do this, since you asked, now I'll need a rhythm. Maybe just with clapping. Let's see. Yeah, if we can. Please don't speed up. Going on a trip, going to a place, going to where there's no return, taking no luggage, taking out the garbage, thinking about what to do. Running out of time, this sack of bones, this bag of bones won't stay around. Little bit longer, not much longer, going to be in Krishna's zone, back home. So we gotta get reading and hearing that old-time religion, that big-time, big space, book of truth, absolute truth, the Srimad Bhagavatam. That beautiful story of the glory of the person, the flute-playing person, the one for whom every step is a dance, whose sidelong glance makes Radha prance. But not so fast, 1 page at a time. Canto 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we're taking the dive. It could be on your hard drive. Shukadev's here, it's no dead archive. Let's listen in. Open your ears, open our hearts to his poetic vision. Make a decision, no need for revision. You're in the best of company. Fifth Canto rocks, you can take off your socks, 'cause now is the time to hear it in rap. Let's close the gap. It's why we clap and tap our feet to get to Jambudvip. Going on a trip, going to a place, going to where there's no return. Taking no luggage, taking out the garbage, thinking about what to do. Running out of time, this sack of bones, this bag of bones won't stay around, won't be around much longer. Going home to Krishna's zone, back home. Hare Krishna. The only reason I did that is because I know you can do better. So, yeah, maybe you can start. If I did this, kind of on the Fifth Canto as a whole, so to speak, or Bhagavatam. But you can take one verse and work through it, so to say. And what I'm hoping we can do is have a little presentation. Friday evening there's going to be the Mahabharata, but maybe before they perform, we can have a few minutes, and some of you, don't run away, can do something like this. What do you think? Everyone's looking at me with blank faces. No? Yes. Maybe. Okay, we'll talk about this more. There's a few technical things you can know, which I didn't know. But yes, we can go for that. Okay. Let's do a bit of overviewing of the Fifth Canto, shall we? With pictures? Yeah, that'll be painless. So we start with Canto 5, Chapter 1, the activities of Maharaja Priyavrata. Priyavrata, anyone know who he is the son of? Manu. Which Manu? Swayambhuva Manu, yes. Who is the other son? Oh, we've got some genealogists here. And that's one thing we get in the Fifth Canto, and especially the first, 2 or 3 chapters, we get a lot of names. And then later, the 15th chapter, I think we get also a lot of names, and we may wonder about that. But one thing I understand about the cantos 4 through 9 is we're getting essentially a day in the life of Lord Brahma through the various Manus. And then so there's some listing that goes on, and then there's a pause. Oh, here's a special personality who is a devotee, or is the Lord himself, or is a Shakti Avesha avatar, and so on. So we're getting pictures, in a sense, of the story of Krishna in his many forms prior to or after his appearance as Krishna himself, so that we understand who is Krishna. So one thing Priyavrata does, this is suggested in this painting on the right, is he's not satisfied with the illumination of the sun, so he decides to help out, and he becomes, in effect, himself a kind of sun. And as a result of this, from his chariot wheels, he creates islands and oceans. So from the beginning of this canto, we're getting a cosmic dimension. We're getting a picture of Krishna consciousness as something happening in the cosmos. And so the reader, the listener, we're asked to, you could say, to think big as we hear these stories. I'm sort of going like this, chapter 1, chapter 2, we got some images. Here we get a bit of a romance. In chapter 2, Agnidra is understood by Lord Brahma to have some interest to procreate. And procreation is, as we have family history, so there's procreation, so there's the story of creation. And a major theme of the Bhagavatam is birth. There's death. But the very first word of the Bhagavatam is janma, janmadi yasya yata. And it's about what is the cause of all causes. And so there are several narrations about births, several narrations about creation, which you can think of as a type of birth. But in this case, we have a celestial girl named Purvachitti, and she comes to the hermitage, to the ashram of Agnidra, and attracts him. And so he's a sage, and sages are not always celibate. You may think sage must mean celibate. No. There can be others. And this is an explanation of how eventually Rishabhadeva will appear. In chapters 3 and 4, Rishabhadeva, from a descendant, I never remember the details, but he is the son of Merudevi and King Nabhi. Now, Rishabhadeva is celebrated not only by the Vaishnavas, he's also celebrated by the Jains. Jainism is a tradition in India which does not acknowledge or recognize Veda. They have their own scriptures, extensive scriptures, not in Sanskrit, but in one or another form of what's called Prakrit. But one of their acharyas, if you like, they're called Tirthankaras, is Rishabhadeva. So there's something of a crossing that's happening in the Bhagavatam. There is this considerable description of Rishabhadeva, and someone who is aware of the Jain tradition will be curious to know, how is the Bhagavatam representing Rishabhadeva? And how does that relate, or does it relate, to how Jains understand Rishabhadeva? Well, the Bhagavatam understands he is an avatar. He is, I never forget, technically is a Shakti Avesha or some other form, but he is an avatar. Who is our expert on avatars here? You can tell us which type he is. Anyone? The same devotee who knows the family history? No? Okay, doesn't matter. My point is, this is something, as one reads, one can have this in mind, that there is this other tradition which has a slightly or perhaps significantly different perspective on the same person. And if you look up, I confess, I looked up in Wikipedia under Rishabhadeva, and I looked under Nabhi, and for the Jains, Nabhi is also the father of Rishabhadeva. So there's a kind of crossover of traditions. But the Bhagavatam is going to say quite explicitly, without ever mentioning the word Jain, is going to say Jainism is heretical, pashandi. So it speaks quite strongly. At the same time as celebrating one of their great personalities, Rishabhadeva. Okay, a very famous verse comes, a couple of famous verses come in chapter 5, in which Rishabhadeva is teaching his sons. How many sons does he have? 100 sons. Imagine having 100 sons. Imagine telling someone that Rishabhadeva has 100 sons, and what would they say in response? So Rishabhadeva teaches his sons, Nayam deho deha bhajanri loke kashtan kaman arhate vidbhujanye. Tapo divyam putraka yena sattvam shudyat yasmat brahma sokyam tvanantam tu anantam. Yes, Maharaj, do you want to give us the translation of that, basically? Nayam deho deha bhajanri loke. Do we have a microphone?
Yeah,
Very, very roughly. That the human body is not meant just for sense gratification, which is available in other species, but is meant for divine austerity, so that one can purify their consciousness and attain spiritual happiness. Something to
Very good, yes. It's a verse often quoted by Srila Prabhupada, and often, maybe it's even in his translation, it is not meant for living like the hogs and dogs. So it gives this very graphic image of what human beings should not be. And then tapo divyam, what should we be doing? So it says, first of all, what we shouldn't be doing, and then it tells us what we should be doing as humans. the picture on the right, what is this about? This is about Rishabhadeva ending his life. There is a forest fire, and he is celebrated as having been completely undisturbed. Also in the left picture, he's being harassed by all manner of nasty people, and he's not disturbed. And then eventually he gives up his body in a forest fire, again without being disturbed. So the whole picture of this great person, Rishabhadeva, is as a first-class yogi who is absolutely and completely detached. So the Bhagavatam, especially in this first half of the fifth canto, I would say, is very much about developing detachment. Now comes this very special story. It's a story that I've been reading and you could say I've been working on for some time. The senior-most son of Rishabhadeva is Bharata, and Bharata is a king not just for a few years, but for, 10,000 or 10 million years, I forget. It was a long time. And after all those years, he renounces everything and he goes to the forest, and he's hardly gotten himself into a meditative state. He's already very advanced in bhakti yoga, but he couldn't help but save this little deer fawn from dying when its mother gave birth, and then herself died out of fear from this lion roar. And of course, as you know, he gives shelter, and in the course of giving shelter, he becomes quite captivated by this deer, to the extent that he can no longer focus on his devotional meditation, and to the extent that in his next life he becomes a deer. But no ordinary deer. He becomes a deer who remembers his previous life. And remembering his previous life as a yogi, king became yogi, he becomes now more determined that however this life goes, next life I will progress to perfection. And so in his next life, he becomes the Brahman, Jada, Bharata. What means Jada? Mad, yes. It kind of means dull. Dull. It can refer to matter. Matter is Jada. Dull, lifeless. So he's considered lifeless, but he is, of course, not lifeless. He is so much not lifeless that Kali, to whom these dacoits want to offer him, comes, so to say, out of her deity, or her deity itself becomes from Jada to becoming active, so active that she takes the life of all those who would have taken his life. So in this very dramatic reversal of identities, Jada emerges unscathed. He comes out without a scratch, we would say, but there's more trouble when he is taken up as pretty much as a slave to help carry the litter, the palanquin of this king, this short-tempered Rahugana. Short-tempered Rahugana, fortunately, is, it seems, somewhat pious, because he understands very quickly, after Jada Bharata begins to speak, it's the first time in his life, apparently, that he is speaking, and what he is speaking is, we say in English, truth to power. And there's a Greek word for this I just learned, parrhesia. Parrhesia. Yeah, it means speaking the whole truth and just letting it out without any concern for consequences to oneself. That is parrhesia. So Jada Bharata is our Bhagavatam example of enacting this parrhesia. And so as a result, he's then able to give this extensive instruction to this Rahugana king. But the point I want to make from this, and I'm going to be, I hope to write an article on this, is that although he made a mistake by showing compassion to the deer, it led to his compassion becoming deeper. And how does it become deeper? It becomes deeper because he has to experience himself what it is to be an animal, but he experiences it with memory. He is able to remember, I was a yogi, and it's because of that, I would argue, that he is so careful when he is carrying the palanquin not to step on any ants. It's that he has extended his compassion, and that compassion enables him also to speak truth to power in such a way that this king is transformed, his life is transformed to understand, actually, he's not a king. He is just a servant of the Lord, a servant of the servant. And that's described in 2 chapters. Chapter 13 is Jada Bharata speaking, telling this extended allegory or analogy of the forest of material enjoyment, and then some elaboration on that is in chapter 14. And what is the analogy? It's that this merchant is going into a forest with great hopes of acquiring wealth. And what does he get instead? He gets nothing but trouble. It's one trouble after another, after another, after another. And he tries again and again, and again there's more trouble. And that's called material existence. So there's this extended analogy. And then chapter 15, this is where we get a long list of names. If we want to put our audience to sleep, this is how we do it. We read chapter 15 of Canto 5. Why is this told in the Srimad Bhagavatam? My only answer would be related to what Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, that Srimad Bhagavatam is a kind of condensation and a kind of summary of all of the Puranic knowledge with the focus on Krishna, the Supreme Lord. But because it's a summary, it's also having the purpose of enabling one to get everything one needs to know in one book. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur went so far as to say in one early essay, even if, just like the Library of Alexandria was burned and completely destroyed, even if all the Vedic literature, except for the Srimad Bhagavatam, would be destroyed, there would be no loss. If all Vedic literature would be destroyed except the Srimad Bhagavatam, there would be no loss. That's Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So the point being that the Bhagavatam, one way to understand it, it's a summary of what is found elsewhere without the clear focus on Lord Krishna. But it's, of course, so much more than that. Well, then what happens? You come to chapter 16, and this is where the trouble starts. This is where we get the beginning of an extended description of the cosmos. It's a Puranic description, and it's one which has caused much consternation, much debate, much deliberation, how to understand what is being described in relation to what we see in this world and beyond this world. Where do we see anything like Mount Meru, for example? Mount Meru is said to be, I always forget the numbers, but thousands of kilometers high and above, and some even below. So many, everything is measured in yojanas. And a yojana, I asked an historical linguist about this, Sanskritist, and also knowledgeable in so many other languages. I asked him about this word yojana, and he said, oh, of course, it means a yoking. A yoking. A yoking means the period of time that one might put two oxen in a yoke and pull a cart. So how far two oxen will go before the driver needs to stop because they're tired, that is a yojana. Okay, that doesn't give us a very exact number, does it? This is sort of a footnote, but one thing I've thought about this is it's all growing out of the Vedic tradition, and the Vedic tradition is very much about the sacrifice. And the sacrifice is performed in a yagshala, where there's an altar, and the altar is constructed by the measure of the body of the sponsor of the yagya. So, for example, the aratni is a measure from the elbow to the small finger, according to one source. Maybe it was Wikipedia, I don't remember. And you and I will say, yes, but Keshav Maharaj's aratni is going to be a lot bigger than mine. So what is it? Well, it depends who's sponsoring the yagya. So measurement was in terms of the sacrifice. measurement was in terms of the whole process, including, or starting with, you could say, the sponsor, the yajamana. And so-called absolute measure may not be the relevant issue here. Well, that's just a footnote. Okay, here we see two attempts at diagramming Jambudvipa, and on the right, what's being called Vedic Hindu cosmology, and one may see different ways of rendering it. The late Sadaputta Prabhu, Dr. Richard Thompson, wrote more than one book on this topic, in which he shows very interesting ways of understanding what's described in the Bhagavatam with what astronomers would see in the universe looking out. He gives quite detailed ways of understanding, of explanation. Chapter 17, the descent of the river Ganges, Ganga. So we get descriptions. There's, of course, the famous story of how Ganga descends, how Lord Shiva is involved. And it's mentioned in this chapter, Lord Shiva, where do we find Lord Shiva? He's in Ilavrita, and he's always surrounded by how many maidservants of Goddess Durga? Only 10 billion. And they all minister to him. Someone want to perform that? Yes, it's described, it's there in the Bhagavatam. What to make of that? There are many things in these chapters that one may puzzle about, or one may simply wonder about. And this is, I think, a very important concept, is wonder. We heard for a moment the idea of rasa. Rasa can mean mellow, as Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur translated, or humor sometimes, or taste. And we know that one of these tastes is adbhuta. What means adbhuta? Wonder. And Kavi Karnapura explains that this wonder is actually foundational to poetry. So all of these chapters describing the universe, I would suggest, are, if nothing else, evoking wonder and helping us to become humble about understanding what is it that we understand about where we are in this world. Chapter 20, studying the structure of the universe. So there's a horizontal description, that's Jambudvipa, and then it goes in a vertical direction. And we come to one of my more favorite paintings on the right, more on this structure of the universe. I always like to see Lord Vishnu looking very busy. Lord Vishnu is, this is, we hear about relaxation and Shayana Asana, and there's Yoga Nidra. Well, there it is. But what does Lord Vishnu do when he relaxes? He is doing something. What is he doing? He's breathing. And when he breathes, he breathes in and out, yes. Just like us. What else? He creates universes, just like bubbles coming out. So what is this about? Then, I jumped over chapter 8, where are we? 21. Chapter 18, there are many prayers in chapter 18. One of them you may be familiar with. It's a favorite of devotees, where Prahlad Maharaj is praying to Nrsingadev. What does he pray? Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya Namaste Tejase Avir Bhava Vajranaka Vajradangstra Karma Shayan Randhaya Tamo Grasa Om Swaha Abhayam Atmani Bhuishta Om Kshram. Yeah. But there are so many more prayers in that chapter. Chapter 20, the movements of the sun. So this comes back to what Priyavrata was involved with in the very beginning of the Canto 5. And again, it's about the cosmos. It's about what is this universe? What is this world in which we find ourselves? And so much of this you will find in other Puranas, but not only in other Puranas. You'll also find similar descriptions in Buddhist literature and in Jain literature. And again, coming back to what I was saying in relation to Rishabhadeva and the Jains, there is something about this section which is, I think, important to keep in mind, that this is a kind of bringing together of an understanding which is, you could say, within the more than Vedic world of discourse, where Buddhists and Jains, everyone is considering the universe in terms that are similar to what's described here. But what is the Bhagavatam doing? It's always coming back to who is the source of all of this, and what is our relation to all of this in relation to that source. Where are we? 23. Shishumara, planetary system. Shishumara is the Milky Way, which we never see anymore. When I was a kid, you could see the Milky Way. Huh? You saw it here last night, yes. Here in the mountains we can see it. Or maybe in Mongolia you can see it. When it's very clear, then we can see. Then Shishumara. Shishu, what does Shishu mean? Child. And Shishumara, death of a child. Anyway. Okay, subterranean, so we go up and then we go down and we see the subterranean heavenly planets. Heavenly planets below the earth? Yes. Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Talatala, Mahatala, Rasatala, and Patala, most famous. And then below that, the Garbhodaka ocean. And then we have the glories of Anantadev. Why? Because he's holding it all up. There's Vishnu, he's relaxing. There's Lakshmi Devi, she is massaging Vishnu's lotus feet. And he is being supported by Ananta. And Ananta is, you could say, keeping alert. But then, chapter 26, description of the hellish planets. Now, the devotee who prepared these slides for me found this. This is on the right, a 12th century miniature titled Hell. Is a page from the Hortus Deliciarum, an encyclopedic manuscript compiled by Harold of Landsberg at the Hohenburg Abbey in Alsace around 1180. So that's something from Europe, and it's illustrating something like Bhagavatam in this chapter. Does that mean that person had been reading Srimad Bhagavatam? Could be. Well, yes, we shouldn't reject the possibility, but that would be very interesting if he had been. Okay, this was a whirlwind overview of Canto 5. And we want to go back and take a few verses and reflect on them and see what we can do with them to bring them alive over the next days. And, well, one way to bring them alive is in song, and one form of song is a popular form, starts with an R. Yeah, so I think we'll leave it at that for now. Our time has come to an end, scheduled time, unless maybe someone has a burning question or a not so burning question. I did this overview just as a form of priming the pump. And you might find, if you have, who does not have a mobile phone these days, you may find, if you don't have a Fifth Canto physical book with you, you can find it online or in your phone or whatever. And you might start looking at something from this canto that you would find especially interesting, that you would like to do something with. Okay? Johannes.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. You mentioned the story about Jada, who in a sense sort of got captured by his compassion for the deer, and that led to him being born as a deer. But then you also said that it seems like he had learned something more about compassion in his next life, how he acted in not stepping on the ants. So can you say something about what we can learn about the right way to show compassion in the world based on this story?
The commentator on this chapter, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in the beginning of his commentary to chapter 8 of Canto 5, says this chapter is to show that compassion can be an obstacle to bhakti. Because this is the chapter in which he saves the fawn, and then eventually he dies and becomes. And so what he's saying, and it's in this chapter, I believe, that that Bharata feels great remorse after he is born as the deer. He becomes remorseful. So he's saying this indicates, Vishwanath is saying this indicates that it can be a danger, or it can be an obstacle to bhakti. But he doesn't give any further explanation. We sort of want him to then go on and say, so this is how you can judge whether showing compassion is a good idea or not, with respect to whatever level of bhakti you're on. You kind of wish that he would say something like that, but he doesn't. And this is kind of typical of the commentators. They're extremely succinct in their explanations, elaborations. What I see in it is his mistake could be taken that he had, in his resolve to become renounced, made the mistake of renouncing all association, including devotee association. If he had, we can sort of picture, and this is, you could act this out, you could say, well, here's an alternative version of this story. That's an idea, something to work on. Is, let's say he had a friend who was also a meditator, and they were meditating, and they both see the deer, and they both say, oh, we've got to save this deer, okay. And they save, and then Bharata starts getting too much preoccupied, and his friend says, hey, you're getting too, distracted. And then Bharata says, oh, you're right. Let's not worry so much about, and so on. So I would say an extension of that message would be cautious and also humble about one's own advancement. Does this mean a Vaishnava does not show compassion? Obviously not. This is what Vaishnavas are all about. If nothing else, they're about showing compassion to all kinds of conditioned souls. How to show compassion to different souls? Well, that's a big topic, but showing compassion is in particular the principle identified with the Madhyama Adhikari, right? Ishvaretat adineshu balisheshu dvishatsu cha prema maitri kripa upeksha yakaroti sa madhyama. Kripa, one shows compassion to the balak, to the uninformed, or the to the weak, to the needy, to anyone. I remember when I was in Amsterdam in 1973, that's a while ago, 73, it was maybe late 73, and the rumor that was circulating around Amsterdam amongst the hippies was that a huge tsunami was going to come any day now and completely wipe out Amsterdam, which is a very, very low city. It depends on these dikes and so on. I don't know why the hippies didn't therefore all leave Amsterdam, but one of the devotees in the Amsterdam temple decided, we have to save as many people as we can before this happens. And so he took it upon himself every day for several weeks. He would prepare a big barrel full of popcorn. And he would offer, or he would have the pujari offer it to Lord Jagannath, who are now in Radhadesh. And then he would go out and he would distribute his popcorn. And all the other devotees were kind of, okay, you know, if that's what you want to do. We want to distribute books or whatever, do Harinam. He wanted to distribute prasadam. Okay, go for it. Who knows, maybe because of his determination, the tsunami that should have happened, Krishna decided, no, we will save everyone. Who's to say it didn't happen? Yeah. So, yeah, compassion is an essential element, but the Bhagavatam brings this in to, we might want to say, to warn us to be careful not to be easily distracted in the name of caring for someone, actually losing the plot. I would say like that. Yeah. Okay. On that note, I hope I didn't scare you away by that you won't come tomorrow, because I'm suggesting that we do things like impromptu or interviews, or don't worry, it's all painless. Yes, Maharaji.
Practical question, should we prepare as a big group some verse or each by himself? Oh, sorry. Should we prepare a verse with a small group or each individual?
As you like. You're welcome to do something by yourself or to work with one person or two persons together, however you want, if you want. If you want. Do you want? Yes, you would like to do something? Yeah?
Yeah, maybe.
Yes, maybe. Devotee's commitment. Yes. Yes, maybe. I like that. Yes. Maybe I'll do it. Okay, thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Premanande. Hari Bol.